says that you're for revolutionary change.
I see. It follows then that it will not be, there's no way of forecasting when it's going to come about. It's sort of a pressure that is building constantly.
See, as I said, I think revolution is an evolutionary process. I think as repression increases, people must respond to that repression. Now, the dilemma that the black movement is in today is that, you know, there's a divisiveness that exists in the black community between what's considered cultural nationalists and political nationalists. Now, understand, the man or system endorses cultural nationalism. He will give people money to open up dashiki shops, will give people money to open up bookstores, because he knows that if you keep the people thinking culturally, then they won't move politically. My position is that culture has to be political. Everything has to be political. And in terms of the struggle, that political direction will, you know, give rise to the revolutionary struggle as a result of the repression that will be brought down because of political struggle. See, I think that it's significant to note that the laws that have been passed in this country for the past 10 years have been laws of a repressive nature to deal with black people. In other words, the Omnibus Crime Bill speaks directly to black people. So the Anti-Riot Bill tells black people when they can travel, how they can travel, and if they can travel. The McCarran Act of 1950, Internal Security, which came as a result of the Internal Security Act, created concentration camps in this country for black people. And so I think, you know, like in terms of the repression and in terms of the role of the vanguard groups, I think the role of the vanguard group is to bring that repression down before the timetable that has been set up by the system runs its full course. I think it's our responsibility to get the masses involved. And the way you get the masses involved is that you bring the repression down. When you begin to execute political programs, then out of necessity, the system has to do certain things to control or try to, you know, put an end to the type of political action that you're executing. And by doing this, they involve the masses of people. The masses of people, from our position, from our viewpoint, is unorganizable. You can't hope to organize the masses of people. Oppression organizes the masses of people. White folks make more revolutionaries than I ever could make.
Well, let's go back a bit. Let's backtrack. What happened with you and SNCC? Why did you leave?
Well, my term as chairman expired.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, there was an election, and Brother Phil Hutchins was elected program secretary. There was the restructuring of the organization, because what had happened was that the man had effectively directed his repressive laws against individuals. And when this had happened, you know, it created a vacuum. When I was off the scene, you know, like, people who respond to me would not respond to other individuals. So what we did, we created a decentralized type of decentralization occurred, in whereby we created other people to be spokesmen. See, people have to get out of the idea that individuals lead movements. See, the revolutionary is the individual who's on the other side of that camera. These are the people who will make the revolution. They have responsibilities to the revolution and to themselves. And, you know, like, if individuals articulate positions, it's perhaps because they have public forums, not because they know more than anybody else, not because they are more oppressed than anybody else. So black people have to begin to understand the role that they have to play in that revolution is determined by them.
What about the future for you, Rap? Where will you fit in as this revolutionary process evolves?
Good question. In terms of the legal cases that I have in court now, the man, you know, like, is moving against me as an individual to put me away, to get rid of me and get me off, you know, out the streets. Now, I think, you know, everything hinges and pins upon the nature of the struggle that's conducted in this country. If black people wage successful revolutionary struggle in this country, then every black cat in jail, you know, he doesn't have to worry about being in prison because he's black. But, you know, my fate, as the fate of, you know, every other black person in this country, depends upon what we do.
You feel that that the law is truly, justice is truly blind, or you feel that it's a...
No, justice ain't blind. Justice see white folks mighty well. As a matter of fact, justice means just us white folks in this country. See, for black people, justice is a joke. No such thing as justice in this country for black people. The courts are a tool of oppression. The courts, you know, like, help to execute the genocide, the type of genocide that has been practiced against black people in this country for 400 years.
Why is it that there's not much exposure about what you feel, if it is true that justice is not blind, that it does favor one segment of the society? Why isn't it attacked more by responsible agencies?
The very reason that they're responsible mean that the very statement responsible agents say that they're not going to respond. Because, like, in terms of the status quo is never attacked by the comfortable people, the people who profit from it. And so, as to expect, the responsible Negroes or the responsible white people, to attack the system from the basis that poor people and oppressed people will attack it, is out of the question.
You say that America as it stands just cannot be as far as a black man is concerned. Does this mean that the democratic idea, not how it's practiced, but the idea of a democracy is not valid?
I think that in terms of, there has been no successful example of democracy as it's taught in this country. I'm not even talking about as it's practiced. I'm talking about as it's taught in this country.
How about the Constitution?
Looks good on paper. I think, the Constitution has a lot of valid ideas and thoughts. But you see that the contradictions that exist in this country are created out of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Otherwise, Constitution is nothing but white people's paper. It's advantageous and it's favorable for white people. They created contradictions to the Constitution when they added the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment.
Rap, what effect is the end of the Vietnam War going to have on the situation here in this country?
I think that if, America has ever run out of Vietnam and defeated, as they should be in Vietnam, then black people over here will have to, be in a position where they can defend themselves. Because I think that aggression that's being directed against the Vietnamese people will be turned inwardly against black people in this country. See, America, in terms of where she goes and, who she controls, a whole sphere of influence is diminishing. America is fighting on about 5 or 6 different fronts right now. Latin America, like Africa, Middle East, and Vietnam, and here, domestically. So I think that, given the system and given that it operates off the military-industrial complex, which means that war is profitable and that, General Steel, USS Steel must make steel for tanks to hire people, to give people jobs so they can spend the money to buy other goods. The very fact that the system operates off that principle means that when the man comes back, when the man is run out of every country, then it will become necessary to wage war in his own country.
This is an utter contradiction to what a lot of politicians said, that when the war in Vietnam ends, then we can use all that money to sort of solve our racial ills here.
No, it's not true, you see, because money has never been a problem for this country in terms of allotting money, because, you see, money here is not based on gold. It's not really based on the goods that are produced. See, this is the lie that's been told, and it's been sold to black people as green power. Green power is a myth, see, because as long as a man possesses the power to change the color of money, then, the color of money is not significant in struggle. He can give black people all the green money in the world and tell them they're using red money tomorrow. Black people have to go work for red money. In terms of what he did to the international monetary system. Now, the United States has a budget, annual budget of $800 billion. They had only $12 billion worth of gold. In terms of their foreign spending, it exceeded the quantity of gold that they had in this country. So France was putting pressure on the United States by demanding payment in gold from paper currency. So what the United States did was that the United States said, okay, we're going to change the rules. They put pressure on the international monetary system, and they changed the whole international monetary standards from gold to paper gold. And they did that because they have power. Not because the money they had was so good. They had power.
Thank you, Rap.
Imam Jamil Al Amin has been behind bars in the Georgia State Prison in Reidsville since March 16, 2002, for a crime he insists he did not commit. In August of 2007, he was transferred to another solitary cell in the Florence State Prison in Colorado, 1,400 miles away from Georgia, impeding family and friends from regular visits. Also being isolated from any contacts with other inmates, barring him from worship with anyone else. Like It Is will continue to follow this story.